Welcome to a chapter a day. Listen carefully. Everything in your life is happening because of you. Every result you see, your money, your relationships, your energy, your confidence, is a mirror. And most people spend their entire lives arguing with the mirror instead of changing what's reflected back. This audiobook is a guide. The instruction inside will teach you how to rewrite your internal code. You are not here to feel good for 5 minutes. You are here to wake up permanently. The world you live in is not controlled by luck, genetics, or timing. It is controlled by identity, focus, and repetition. The strongest people understand this early. Everyone else learns it too late, or never. Right now, there is a version of you that already lives the life you want. That version thinks differently, moves differently, decides faster. And today, you begin closing the distance between who you are and who you must become. You don't need more information. You need alignment. When your thoughts align with your actions, and your actions align with your standards, reality has no choice but to move. Over the next hour, you are going to hear the same truths repeated again and again. That repetition is not an accident. It is reprogramming. If you stay with me, if you listen fully, and if you apply even 10% of what you hear, your life will not look the same in a year. It cannot. This is the moment you stop reacting and start commanding. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Reality is a mental and spiritual game. Let's start by telling the truth most people avoid. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. Read that again in your mind. Slowly. Let it land. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. Most people believe the opposite. They believe the world outside of them is fixed, solid, immovable. They believe money is hard. Success is rare. Confidence is genetic. Opportunity is scarce. And because they believe that, their lives obediently reflect it back to them. Not because it's true, but because belief comes first. Your outer world is not leading your inner world. Your inner world is leading everything. Your circumstances are not the cause. They are the effect. This is the first rule of the game. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. Look at your life right now. Not emotionally. Objectively. Your habits. Your income. Your relationships. Your self-talk. Your energy when you wake up. None of it is random. It is the delayed echo of the thoughts you have repeatedly thought, the identity you have repeatedly reinforced, and the standards you have repeatedly tolerated. Change the mind, and the world obeys. Most people try to change the world first. They work harder, push longer, grind more, force outcomes. And when nothing changes, they blame the system, the economy, their parents, their past. But effort without alignment is friction. You can work endlessly in the wrong identity and still go nowhere. That's because reality does not respond to what you want. Reality responds to who you believe you are. This is why two people can do the same work and get wildly different results. Same hours, same industry, same tools, different outcomes. The difference is not effort. The difference is frequency. The strongest frequency wins. Your beliefs broadcast a signal. Your identity sets the tone. And the world rearranges itself to stay consistent with that signal. This is not philosophy. This is observation. Think about someone you know who always lands on their feet. They expect things to work out. They move with certainty. They don't beg reality. They assume. And somehow doors open. People help. Timing aligns. Now think about someone who expects struggle, who expects rejection, who expects things to go wrong. Same world. Same city. Completely different experience. Same reality. Different game being played. Because reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. This is why identity change beats strategy every time. There are people who became wealthy without knowing how, confident without knowing why, influential without chasing approval. They didn't start with tactics. They started with self-concept. They decided who they were. And reality followed. You make the rules. That sentence alone, if fully accepted, will change your life. You make the rules. Not society. Not your past. Not your circumstances. You do. The moment you decide this is who I am now, and begin acting from that place, the game changes. Not instantly, but inevitably, because reality lags. Reality is always catching up to the inner shift you've already made. That lag is where most people quit. They change their thinking for a week, a month. They don't see immediate proof, and they return to the old identity. But the people who win understand something critical. They understand that persistence in belief creates inevitability. Change the mind, and the world obeys. Look at real-world examples. The person who stops seeing themselves as bad with money and starts seeing themselves as someone who manages, respects, and multiplies money. Their spending changes. Their decisions change. Their tolerance for financial chaos disappears. Opportunities begin to appear, not magically, but perceptually. They see what they were blind to before. The person who stops identifying as awkward or unconfident and starts identifying as calm, grounded, and self-directed. Their posture changes. Their voice changes. Their eye contact changes. People respond differently, not because people changed, but because the signal changed. The person who stops seeing themselves as a victim of life and starts seeing themselves as the author. They stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What's the move?" Their energy sharpens. Their life accelerates. None of these people waited for proof first. They moved first. That is how the game works. Reality does not reward hesitation. It responds to assumption. This is why affirmations fail when they are weak and disconnected, and why identity statements work when they are embodied. You don't repeat things to convince the world. You repeat things to install them in yourself. The world just follows. Change the mind, and the world obeys. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. If your life isn't where you want it to be, it's not because you haven't tried hard enough. It's because, at some level, you are still loyal to an identity that produces your current results. And that loyalty is usually unconscious. You might say you want freedom, but still identify as someone who plays small. You might say you want abundance, but still identify as someone who struggles. You might say you want confidence, but still rehearse self-doubt daily. Reality listens to the rehearsal, not the wish. This is where power begins to return to you. Because if identity creates reality, then identity can be chosen. You are not stuck. You are just conditioned. And conditioning can be rewritten. Outsmart the game of reality. Stop fighting the outside world. Start upgrading the inside one. This chapter is not asking you to deny facts. It's asking you to reassign meaning. Facts are temporary. Identity is foundational. When your identity changes, your interpretation of facts changes. When interpretation changes, decisions change. When decisions change, outcomes change. That is the chain. Mental, spiritual, physical. In that order. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. As you move forward in this audiobook, you are not collecting information. You are installing a new operating system. And it starts with one decision. You stop seeing yourself as an effect of the world, and you start seeing yourself as a cause within it. Change the mind, and the world obeys. You make the rules. And now that you understand the game itself, it's time to understand something even more dangerous. If reality responds to belief, who decided what you're allowed to believe in the first place? You've mastered the truth that the world follows your inner state. Now it's time to reclaim authorship. Chapter 2. You make the rules. Most people are imprisoned without bars. Not by governments. Not by systems. Not by other people. They are imprisoned by rules they never agreed to, rules they inherited, rules they absorbed, rules they obey without question. And the tragedy is this. They call this obedience reality. But reality is not neutral. Reality is negotiated. And the first act of power is awareness. Awareness is rebellion. The moment you become conscious of the rules you are living by, you weaken their control over you. Because most rules only function when they are unquestioned. Let's say this clearly. Nothing is real until you accept it. That sentence is not denial. It is authority. Nothing is real until I accept it. Look around. The limits you see in the world, around money, success, confidence, expression, are not laws of physics. They are agreements. Social agreements. Psychological agreements. Emotional agreements. And most people sign them in silence. They accepted ideas like, people like me don't make that kind of money. That's just how the world works. Be realistic. Don't get your hopes up. Know your place. Those sentences are not facts. They are rules. And rules only exist if you follow them. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. If this were a purely physical world, effort alone would determine outcomes. But you already know that's not true. You've seen people with less talent go further. Less intelligence earn more. Less preparation win bigger. Why? Because they weren't playing by the same invisible rules. They questioned what others assumed. They didn't ask, is this allowed? They asked, why not? Nothing is real until I accept it. This is where money limits begin to dissolve. Money is one of the clearest examples of imagined rules disguised as truth. Some people see money as scarce, stressful, heavy. Others see it as abundant, neutral, responsive. Same currency. Same economy. Different internal rules. The difference is not opportunity. It's permission. At some point, certain people gave themselves permission to earn more, ask for more, charge more, receive more. And because they accepted that as normal, reality adjusted. Others never gave themselves that permission, and reality obeyed that instead. Change the rule, and the result changes. This applies to confidence. Confidence is not a personality trait. It is a rule you decide to follow. The rule says, I trust myself enough to act. Unconfident people are not broken. They are overobedient. They obey the rule that says, wait until you're ready. Wait until you're approved. Wait until you're certain. Confident people obey a different rule. They move first. They don't need consensus. They don't need guarantees. They decide that their own approval is sufficient. Nothing is real until I accept it. Now understand this. Rules are enforced internally before they are enforced externally. The world doesn't stop you. Your self-concept does. You don't need to break every rule. You need to identify which rules are optional. And most of them are. Rules around how visible you're allowed to be, how loud you're allowed to speak, how ambitious you're allowed to sound, how much space you're allowed to take up. These are not universal truths. They are inherited limits. Outsmart the game of reality by doing this one thing. Start asking, who decided that? Who decided success has to take this long? Who decided money must be stressful? Who decided confidence must be earned slowly? Who decided you need permission? Most of the time, the answer is simple. No one did. The rule survived because it was never challenged. Awareness is the first rebellion. The second is choice. You make the rules. That doesn't mean chaos. It means authorship. You choose the rules you will live by deliberately instead of unconsciously. Here's a practical shift you must make starting now. Stop asking, is this realistic? Start asking, is this aligned with who I'm becoming? Realistic is a rule designed to preserve the past. Alignment is a rule designed to create the future. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. The moment you change the internal rulebook, your behavior changes automatically. And when behavior changes consistently, Reality has no option but to comply. This is why identity always comes before evidence. Evidence follows belief, not the other way around. Nothing is real until I accept it. Say it again, slowly. Nothing is real until I accept it. That means rejection is not real unless you accept it as personal. Failure is not real unless you accept it as final. Limits are not real unless you accept them as fixed. This does not make you delusional. It makes you dangerous to old patterns. Most people are waiting for reality to give them permission. But reality is waiting for your decision. The strongest frequency wins. If you decide something is possible for you and act in alignment with that decision long enough, reality reorganizes. Not because it's fair, but because it's consistent. And consistency beats everything. As this chapter closes, understand what you've reclaimed. You no longer live inside invisible cages. You live inside chosen principles. You don't ask the world who you're allowed to be. You decide, and let the world catch up. You make the rules. And once you accept that truth, a deeper question appears. If you're allowed to choose the rules, who exactly is the one choosing? You've reclaimed authority. Now it's time to understand what truly drives your decisions. You've learned that nothing is real until you accept it. Now let's go deeper. Chapter 3. Identity Always Wins. There is a reason most people don't change. It's not because they don't want to. It's not because they don't try. It's because they aim at the wrong level. They aim at goals. And goals are weak compared to identity. Here is the truth that ends frustration. You don't rise to goals. You fall to identity. Every time. Say it again in your mind. I don't rise to my goals. I fall to my identity. This is why motivation fades. Motivation is temporary energy layered on top of a permanent self-concept. And when motivation runs out, and it always does, identity takes over and pulls you back to what feels familiar. That's not failure. That's gravity. Identity is gravity. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. If you don't change who you believe you are, your goals are just wishes wearing disguises. Think about it. Someone who sees themselves as a procrastinator will procrastinate even while motivated. Someone who sees themselves as bad with money will sabotage progress even while learning. Someone who sees themselves as not confident will hesitate even while inspired. Because behavior follows identity automatically. You don't think your way into action. You act your way from who you believe you are. This is why temporary motivation fails without identity reinforcement. You can watch videos, read books, feel inspired for a day or a week. But if the identity stays the same, the behavior snaps back. Outsmart the game of reality by going deeper. Stop asking, what do I want? Start asking, who must I become? That question changes everything. I act from who I am, not what I want. That sentence is a mirror. Look at your daily actions. They are not aligned with your desires. They are aligned with your self-image. And your self-image is shaped by repetition. What you repeatedly say about yourself. What you repeatedly tolerate. What you repeatedly avoid. That becomes who you are. Identity is not one big decision. It is thousands of small agreements. Agreements like, that's just how I am. I've always been this way. People like me don't do that. Those sentences lock behavior in place. Nothing is broken. Nothing is missing. The system is working exactly as designed. Change the identity, and behavior changes without force. Change the identity, and effort becomes lighter. Change the identity, and discipline becomes natural. Change the mind, and the world obeys. This is why the strongest people don't rely on motivation. They rely on standards tied to identity. They don't say, I'll try to work out. They say, I am someone who trains. They don't say, I hope I stay consistent. They say, I am consistent. They don't say, I want to be confident. They say, I move decisively. And then they back it up with action, not to prove it to the world, but to confirm it to themselves. Because identity is reinforced through evidence. Not massive evidence. Small, repeated proof. This is the practical instruction. You don't overhaul your life to change identity. You cast votes. Every action is a vote for the person you believe you are. Wake up on time? Vote. Keep a promise to yourself? Vote. Avoid something you said you'd do. Vote in the opposite direction. Identity always wins because identity is constantly being reinforced. This is where most people sabotage themselves. They wait to feel like a different person before acting. But feeling follows action. You act first. The feeling follows. The identity locks in. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. Your job is not to chase motivation. Your job is to design identity. Here is a powerful shift you must make. Stop saying, I'm trying. Start saying, I don't do that anymore. Trying keeps identity intact. Decisions dissolve it. I'm trying to be disciplined keeps the old self alive. I don't miss workouts creates a new rule. You make the rules. An identity is simply the rules you enforce most often. I act from who I am, not what I want. Say it again. I act from who I am, not what I want. Now look at your goals. They are not instructions. They are signals. They are pointing to an identity you haven't fully stepped into yet. If you want more freedom, the identity is self-directed. If you want more money, the identity is value-creating. If you want more confidence, the identity is decisive. Stop worshiping the outcome. Become the person who produces it naturally. That is how the game is won. Temporary motivation is a spark. Identity is the engine. An engine's beat sparks every time. As this chapter closes, understand this deeply. You don't need to fight yourself. You need to redefine yourself. Once identity shifts, resistance disappears. You no longer rely on willpower. You rely on alignment. You've learned that you make the rules. Now you understand who enforces them. You don't rise to goals. You fall to identity. And now that you see that truth, it's time to aim at something even more precise. Identity is built and destroyed in one place. Your standards. You've learned who wins the game. Now let's talk about what sets the floor of your life. Chapter 4. Your standards are your life. Your life does not rise to your hopes. It sinks to your standards. This is one of the most uncomfortable truths you will ever hear, and one of the most freeing. What you tolerate becomes permanent, not what you desire, not what you complain about, what you allow. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one, and standards are the rules of that game that you enforce without debate. Look at your life honestly. The level of respect you receive, the level of money you keep, the level of energy you live with, the level of chaos or order around you. None of it is accidental. It is the direct result of what you tolerate daily. Low standards do not announce themselves loudly. They whisper. They say things like, "It's fine. I'll deal with it later. That's just how it is. I don't want to make a big deal." And every time you accept that whisper, the standard lowers. The world is always asking you a question. What level is acceptable to you? And whatever you answer, through action or inaction, becomes the rule. Change the mind, and the world obeys. This is why people stay stuck for years while claiming they want more. They want more, but they haven't decided more is required. Wanting is weak. Standards are final. I don't negotiate with my standards. Say it again. I don't negotiate with my standards. Standards are not goals. Standards are non-negotiable conditions of existence. A goal says, I hope. A standard says, this is normal for me. And reality always adjusts to what you define as normal. This starts with speech. How you speak about yourself is a standard. Every time you say, I'm bad at this, you set a floor. Every time you joke about your own limits, you reinforce them. Every time you verbally tolerate disrespect, from yourself or others, you authorize it. High-standard people do not speak casually about things that define their identity. They are careful, intentional, precise, not because they are fragile, but because they are deliberate. Outsmart the game of reality by auditing your language. Your words are not harmless. They are instructions. If you repeatedly speak doubt, reality reflects uncertainty. If you repeatedly speak discipline, reality reflects order. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. Next, time. Time is the clearest indicator of standards. How you use your time shows what you tolerate. Do you tolerate distraction? Do you tolerate procrastination? Do you tolerate wasting your own potential? Time doesn't lie. If you say something matters but don't allocate time to it, your true standard has already been revealed. High standards around time are simple. You show up when you said you would. You leave situations that drain you. You protect focus like an asset. Low standards make excuses. High standards make adjustments. You make the rules. And the rule around time determines the speed of your life. Now, the most important standard of all. Self-respect. Self-respect is not confidence. It is enforcement. It is the decision that you do not abandon yourself. Every broken promise to yourself weakens self-respect. Every kept promise strengthens it. This is why discipline is not punishment. It is proof. Proof that you matter enough to yourself to follow through. What you tolerate from yourself becomes your identity. If you tolerate inconsistency, you become inconsistent. If you tolerate excuses, you become excuse-driven. If you tolerate mediocrity, it becomes your baseline. But the reverse is also true. When you raise standards, identity rises to meet them. I don't negotiate with my standards. High standards feel uncomfortable at first, because they require you to say no to the old version of yourself. They require friction. They require awkwardness. They require letting people down, including the version of you that wants comfort. But comfort is expensive. It costs you growth. It costs you confidence. It costs you momentum. And momentum is created when standards are enforced consistently. Not perfectly. Consistently. This is the shift. Stop asking, what do I want? Start asking, what am I no longer willing to tolerate? That question upgrades your life faster than any vision board ever will. Because removal is more powerful than addition. When you remove tolerance for disrespect, chaos, excuses, delay, self-betrayal, reality reorganizes. People adjust. Opportunities change. Your internal state stabilizes. Not because the world suddenly became nicer, but because your rules changed. Nothing is real until I accept it. And once you stop accepting low standards, they stop existing in your life. This is not about being harsh. It's about being clear. Clarity is kindness to yourself first. As this chapter closes, understand this. Your standards are always speaking, even when you are silent. They speak through what you allow. They speak through what you ignore. They speak through what you repeat. You don't get what you want. You get what you tolerate. And now that you see this, tolerance becomes a choice. You don't negotiate with your standards. You enforce them. You've learned how identity is formed. You've learned how standards set the floor of your life. Now it's time to understand the weapon that enforces standards moment by moment. Your thoughts. You've raised the floor. Now let's sharpen the mind that guards it. Chapter 5. Thought discipline is power. Your life is shaped long before action. It is shaped in silence, in the seconds no one sees, in the thoughts you allow to repeat unchecked. This is where power is either built or lost. Uncontrolled thoughts quietly sabotage outcomes. Not loudly, not dramatically, silently. A single thought ignored becomes a mood. A mood repeated becomes a habit. A habit lived becomes a life. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. And thought discipline is the control panel. Most people believe their thoughts are automatic, that they just happen, that they are victims of their own mind. That belief alone hands over authority, because what you don't control controls you. Thoughts are not facts. They are suggestions, and every suggestion asks one question. Will you agree? I choose my thoughts before they choose me. Say it slowly. I choose my thoughts before they choose me. High performers are not people without negative thoughts. They are people who interrupt them early. Low performers let thoughts run full cycles. They let doubt finish sentences. They let fear complete stories. And by the time action is required, the damage is done. Outsmart the game of reality by acting sooner. The earlier you intercept a thought, the less power it has. This is the skill. Awareness. You cannot control what you are unaware of. Most sabotage happens because people don't notice what they are thinking until it has already shaped behavior. I'm tired. This won't work. What's the point? I'll do it tomorrow. Those are not truths. They are defaults. And defaults only exist until they are challenged. Training the mind is not about positivity. It is about authority. You don't need to replace every negative thought with a positive one. You need to replace it with a useful one. Here is the instruction. The moment you notice a disempowering thought, you interrupt it. Not later. Not after it finishes. Immediately. You say internally, stop. Then you redirect. Not to fantasy. To decision. Instead of, I don't feel like it. You say, I move anyway. Instead of, I'm not ready. You say, I act and adjust. Instead of, this is hard. You say, this is training. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. Your mind is always training for something, either for strength or weakness, either for clarity or chaos, and repetition decides. Every time you allow a weak thought to loop, you train weakness. Every time you interrupt and redirect, you train power. I choose my thoughts before they choose me. This is why discipline starts in the mind, not the body. If you wait until behavior, you're late. The battle is won or lost before action. Understand this clearly. Thoughts are the language of identity. If your thoughts are undisciplined, your identity fragments. If your thoughts are precise, your identity stabilizes. Stability creates confidence. Confidence creates momentum. Momentum reshapes reality. Change the mind, and the world obeys. This is not about controlling every thought. That's impossible. It's about controlling the direction. You don't steer by stopping the wind. You steer by adjusting the sail. Here is a practical exercise you must adopt. At least once per hour, ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? Not emotionally, neutrally. If the thought strengthens you, keep it. If it weakens you, cut it. No debate. No analysis. Cut it. This trains speed. Speed matters. The faster you interrupt, the less energy is wasted. This is why confident people appear calm. They don't let internal chaos escalate. They handle it at the seed level. Nothing is real until I accept it. And thoughts are the first thing you accept. If you accept a thought, you accept its consequences. So choose carefully. I choose my thoughts before they choose me. Say it again. I choose my thoughts before they choose me. Now understand this. Thought discipline is not suppression. It is selection. You are not denying reality. You are deciding how to engage with it. There is always more than one thought available. You choose the one that aligns with who you are becoming. That is power. Most people let their mind rehearse worst-case scenarios. High performers rehearse response. They don't ask, what if this goes wrong? They ask, what's the move if it does? That single shift eliminates fear. Fear feeds on imagined helplessness. Thought discipline restores agency. You make the rules. And the rule here is simple. You do not allow thoughts that contradict your standards, not because you're afraid of them, but because you are responsible for what you reinforce. Your mind is a weapon, and like any weapon, if untrained, it hurts the holder first. As this chapter closes, understand what you've gained. You are no longer at the mercy of mental noise. You are no longer dragged by emotional weather. You decide the internal climate. You've raised your standards. Now you've trained the guard that enforces them. And with thought discipline comes a new level of control. But control alone is not enough. Next, you must learn how to use energy correctly. Because emotions are not the enemy. They are fuel. You've mastered thought discipline. Now let's talk about what drives motion. Chapter 6. Emotion is fuel, not a leader. Most people believe emotions are in charge. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until they feel confident. They wait until they feel motivated. And while they wait, life moves on. This is one of the most common traps in the game. Emotions are not commands. They are signals. Signals about energy. Signals about perception. Signals about interpretation. But signals were never meant to steer the ship. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. And emotional discipline is the difference between drift and direction. High performers feel fear. They feel doubt. They feel resistance. They just don't obey it. They understand a crucial rule. Action changes emotion faster than emotion changes action. Say it clearly in your mind. I move first, emotion follows. Again, I move first, emotion follows. This is not suppression. It is leadership. Emotions evolve to provide information, not instructions. When you mistake them for commands, you hand over authority to the most unstable force inside you. Emotions change with sleep, with food, with stress, with weather. Imagine letting something that unstable run your life. Most people do. Outsmart the game of reality by reversing the order. You act from standards, not from feelings. Feelings catch up later. This is why consistency is rare. Because most people treat emotions like traffic lights. Green means go. Red means stop. But high performers treat emotions like dashboard indicators. Useful information. Not decision makers. They notice fear and move anyway. They notice resistance and move anyway. They notice discomfort and move anyway. And something powerful happens. The emotion changes. Confidence is not the cause of action. It is the result. Motivation is not the prerequisite. It is the byproduct. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. Your nervous system learns through experience, not logic. When you act despite emotion, your brain updates its map. It learns, I can handle this. And fear loses authority. This is why repeated exposure beats affirmation. You don't think yourself into courage. You behave yourself into it. I move first, emotion follows. This is the rule that dissolves procrastination. Procrastination is not laziness. It is emotional obedience. It is waiting for a feeling that was never meant to arrive first. The solution is mechanical. You shrink the action until emotion has no argument. You start before you're ready. You begin before you feel confident. You move while resistance is still talking. Movement cuts through emotion like light through fog. Now understand this. Ignoring emotions is not strength. Using them is. Emotion is fuel. Fear is energy. Anger is energy. Excitement is energy. Fuel is powerful when directed. Destructive when left unmanaged. High performers don't ask, how do I feel? They ask, where can I put this energy? That shift changes everything. Anxiety becomes focus. Frustration becomes intensity. Doubt becomes precision. Nothing is real until I accept it. An emotion only has meaning when you assign it. You can label fear as danger, or you can label it as activation. Same sensation, different rule. You make the rules. This is why two people can feel the same emotion and take opposite actions. One retreats, one advances. The difference is not emotion. It's interpretation. Change the interpretation, and the behavior changes automatically. Change the mind, and the world obeys. Here is the practical discipline you must adopt. When an emotion appears, do not ask, "How do I get rid of this?" Ask, "What action does my standard require right now?" Then do that. No negotiation. No waiting. The emotion will follow. I move first, emotion follows. Say it again. I move first, emotion follows. This rule creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence stabilizes identity. And identity reshapes reality. This is how high performers remain calm under pressure. Not because they don't feel pressure, but because pressure no longer controls timing. They decide when they move. This is leadership of self first. As this chapter closes, understand what you've gained. You no longer wait to feel powerful. You act and power emerges. You no longer obey emotional weather. You move according to internal law. You've trained your thoughts. You've reclaimed authority from emotion. Now there is one force left that determines outcomes more than anything else. Repetition. Because what you do once is noise. What you do repeatedly becomes reality. You've learned how to move. Now let's talk about how repetition locks it in. Chapter 7. Repetition creates reality. Nothing changes your life in a single moment. It changes through repetition. Slow, unsexy, relentless. This is where reality is actually built. The brain does not believe what is true. It believes what is repeated. Read that again. Your brain believes what it hears most often. Not what you want to believe. Not what makes sense logically. What is repeated. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. And repetition is the engine that runs it. This is why your current life feels normal to you. Not because it's optimal. Because it's familiar. Familiarity is created through repetition. Your habits are repeated actions. Your identity is repeated self-talk. Your expectations are repeated assumptions. And your reality is the result. What I repeat becomes real. Say it. What I repeat becomes real. Most people misunderstand this and think repetition means affirmations. Standing in a mirror saying words you don't believe. That's not power. That's noise. Repetition works when it is consistent, emotionally neutral, and aligned with action. Daily self-talk is programming. Not motivation. Not hype. Programming. Every sentence you say to yourself installs instructions. I'm always behind. I never finish. This is just how I am. Those are not observations. They are commands. And the mind obeys commands. Outsmart the game of reality by becoming conscious of your inner narration. Because your inner voice never shuts up. The question is whether it's building you or dismantling you. High performers don't necessarily talk nicer to themselves. They talk more deliberately. They choose phrases that reinforce standards and identity. They repeat, "This is what I do. I handle things. I figure it out." Simple, unemotional, consistent. What I repeat becomes real. This is why change feels hard at first. Because repetition hasn't caught up yet. You can decide something new today, but your nervous system is still running yesterday's software. Repetition is the update. Every day you repeat the new identity through words and actions, the old program weakens. And then one day, resistance disappears. Not because you forced it, but because the repetition finally won. The strongest frequency wins. This is why environments matter. Because repetition doesn't only come from you. It comes from what you listen to, who you talk to, what you consume. Your brain does not discriminate. It absorbs. If you repeatedly hear limitation, you internalize it. If you repeatedly hear strength, you normalize it. Nothing is real until I accept it. And repetition is how acceptance happens. Here is the practical instruction. Choose 3 identity statements aligned with who you are becoming. Not emotional, not exaggerated, grounded, decisive. Examples: I show up every day. I finish what I start. I move with discipline. Then repeat them daily. Not to feel good, to install them. Say them while acting. Say them while uncomfortable. Say them when they feel boring. That boredom is the sign of installation. Emotion fades. Identity remains. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. Your brain learns through exposure. Just like a song becomes familiar after hearing it enough times, a belief becomes true through repetition. And once it feels true, behavior follows effortlessly. This is why negative self-talk is so dangerous. Not because it hurts your feelings, but because it programs limits. Every repeated doubt becomes a boundary. What I repeat becomes real. Say it again. What I repeat becomes real. Now understand this. Repetition does not require intensity. It requires consistency. A small thought repeated daily is more powerful than a big thought repeated once. This is why high performers are boring. They repeat the same principles, the same routines, the same standards. And over time, reality bends. Not dramatically, inevitably. This is how self-trust is built. When your words and actions repeat in alignment, your nervous system relaxes. It learns, this is who I am. And when identity stabilizes, confidence becomes quiet and permanent. As this chapter closes, understand what you now control. You control what gets repeated. You control what becomes familiar. You control what becomes real. You don't need more willpower. You need better repetition. You've learned how reality is built. Now it's time to look at what is constantly reinforcing or weakening your repetition, your environment. Because repetition doesn't happen in isolation. You've mastered internal programming. Now let's talk about the external forces shaping it. Chapter 8. Your environment is training you. You're being trained at all times. Not by force, not by instruction, by exposure. Everything around you is training you. Say it clearly. Everything around me is training me. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. An environment is the silent instructor most people ignore. You don't rise or fall by motivation alone. You adapt. Humans are adaptive systems. We normalize what we see repeatedly. We tolerate what we experience often. We absorb what surrounds us. That means your environment is not neutral. It is programming you, whether you agree with it or not. Your standards are not only internal, they are reinforced externally. If chaos surrounds you, chaos becomes normal. If discipline surrounds you, discipline becomes normal. If ambition surrounds you, ambition becomes normal. This is why change is so hard in the same environment. Not because you're weak, because you're being trained against your intention. Outsmart the game of reality by designing your environment intentionally. Because what you repeatedly see, hear, and engage with becomes your baseline. Everything around me is training me. Let's break this down into 3 areas you must audit. People, inputs, routines. First, people. The people around you define what is acceptable, not through what they say, through how they live. If the people around you complain, you normalize complaint. If they settle, you normalize settling. If they drift, you normalize drift. You don't need to judge them, but you must be honest about influence. Influence is not advice. It is proximity. The strongest frequency wins. If you want to raise your standards, you must spend time around people who already live them, or at least consume their thinking consistently. Nothing is real until I accept it, and repeated exposure leads to acceptance. Second, inputs. What you listen to, what you watch, what you read. These are not entertainment. They are instructions. Your nervous system does not distinguish between background noise and training material. If you repeatedly consume fear-based news, you become reactive. If you repeatedly consume low-level content, your attention weakens. If you repeatedly consume high-standard thinking, your identity upgrades. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. Your inner dialogue is shaped by outer dialogue. This is why high performers guard their inputs aggressively. Not because they are fragile, because they are precise. They understand that focus is finite and identity is shaped by what occupies it. Everything around me is training me. Third, routines. Your daily routines are environmental cues. Where your phone is when you wake up. What you do first in the morning. How you transition between tasks. These small structures either support discipline or sabotage it. You don't rely on willpower when environment does the work. If your environment makes the right action easier, consistency follows naturally. This is why rearranging a room can change a life. It changes cues. It changes defaults. It changes behavior without force. Change the environment, and identity follows. Change the mind, and the world obeys. Here is the practical instruction. Conduct an environment audit. Ask yourself, who around me raises or lowers my standards? What inputs strengthen or weaken my focus? What routines support or undermine discipline? Be ruthless, not emotional. You don't need to cut everyone off. You need to counterbalance. If your physical environment is weak, strengthen your digital one. If your social circle is stagnant, strengthen your intellectual one. Outsmart the game of reality by stacking influence in your favor. Everything around me is training me. Say it again. Everything around me is training me. Once you accept this, you stop blaming yourself for friction and start redesigning the system. You stop asking, why is this so hard? And start asking, why is my environment resisting me? That question gives you leverage. High performers don't rely on heroics. They rely on alignment. Their environment supports their identity instead of fighting it. As this chapter closes, understand this. You are not failing. You are being trained, either intentionally or accidentally. And once you take control of that training, momentum accelerates. You've shaped your inner world. You've trained your thoughts. You've structured repetition. Now it's time to address the thing most people avoid, but which creates the fastest growth. Discomfort. Because growth is not comfortable. It is clarifying. You've designed the training ground. Now let's talk about the pressure that forges strength. Chapter 9. Pain is a portal. Most people run from pain. They avoid it, distract from it, numb it, and in doing so they run from growth. Here is the truth most people never accept. Growth always demands discomfort. Not sometimes. Always. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. And pain is the gatekeeper. Pain is not punishment. It is pressure. Pressure reveals structure. Pressure forges strength. Pressure clarifies identity. The problem is not pain itself. The problem is the meaning assigned to it. Most people interpret pain as a sign to stop. High performers interpret pain as a sign of alignment. This is the reframe that changes everything. This is the price, and I pay it gladly. Say it slowly. This is the price, and I pay it gladly. Pain shows up when you leave the familiar, when you raise standards, when you enforce discipline, when you refuse old patterns. Of course it hurts. You are breaking agreements with your past self. Outsmart the game of reality by recognizing pain for what it is. A transition signal. Every level has a price. The question is not whether you will pay. It's which price you'll choose. The pain of discipline, or the pain of regret. The pain of growth, or the pain of stagnation. You will pay something either way. High performers don't avoid pain. They choose better pain. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. When pain appears, most people personalize it. They say, "What's wrong with me? Why is this so hard? Maybe this isn't for me." Those thoughts turn pressure into suffering. But when you reframe pain as proof of alignment, the story changes. You say, "This means I'm stretching. This means I'm upgrading. This means I'm leaving the old level." Same sensation, different interpretation. And interpretation determines endurance. Change the mind, and the world obeys. This is why comfort is dangerous. Comfort does not announce decline. It sedates it. When everything feels easy all the time, you are likely under-challenged. And under-challenge weakens identity. Pain is feedback. It tells you where the edge is, and edges are where growth happens. This is not about suffering unnecessarily. It's about not flinching when resistance appears. This is where most people quit. Not because the pain is unbearable, but because they interpret it incorrectly. This is the price, and I pay it gladly. Say it again. This is the price, and I pay it gladly. High performers do not glorify pain. They accept it. They understand that every meaningful upgrade comes with friction. New identity. Friction. Higher standards. Friction. Greater responsibility. Friction. Friction is not failure. It is confirmation. Nothing is real until I accept it. And once you accept pain as part of the process, it loses its power to stop you. It becomes noise instead of narrative. Here is the practical instruction. The next time pain appears, physical, emotional, psychological, pause. Don't escape. Don't dramatize. Ask one question. What is this training? That question transforms pain into information. Information creates control. Control creates confidence. This is how people become resilient, not by avoiding pain, but by interpreting it correctly. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. Your body and mind adapt to what you repeatedly face. If you repeatedly face discomfort and survive, your nervous system recalibrates. What once felt unbearable becomes normal, and what becomes normal no longer stops you. This is why disciplined people appear unbothered. They've paid the price enough times that fear has lost credibility. They trust themselves, and self-trust is built in discomfort. As this chapter closes, understand this deeply. Pain is not in your way. It is the way. It is the doorway between who you were and who you're becoming. And every time you step through instead of retreating, your identity upgrades. You've learned to control your thoughts. You've learned to lead your emotions. You've learned to design your environment. Now you must learn how to move decisively, because hesitation is expensive, and speed, when aligned, multiplies everything. You've paid the price. Now it's time to move. Chapter 10. Speed is a decision. Most people confuse speed with recklessness. They wait for perfect conditions. They wait for certainty. They wait for all signals to align. And while they wait, life passes them by. Here is the hard truth. Speed is not reckless. It is decisive. Speed is the ultimate amplifier of results. Speed creates confidence. Speed separates leaders from followers. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. The problem is overthinking. Overthinking is disguised fear. Fear dressed as logic. Fear dressed as preparation. Fear dressed as being responsible. It whispers, what if it goes wrong? What if I fail? What if I make the wrong move? And every second you delay, the nervous system strengthens indecision. Outsmart the game of reality by acting fast before fear can argue. I decide fast and adjust later. Say it clearly. I decide fast and adjust later. Confidence is not built in comfort. It is built in motion. The first step, taken immediately, generates momentum. Momentum reinforces identity. Identity stabilizes the nervous system. A stable nervous system allows you to act with certainty even when the outcome is unknown. The paradox is simple. You do not need confidence to act. You need action to generate confidence. Think of any high performer, any entrepreneur, any athlete. Do you think they waited for perfect clarity before making a move? No. They acted. They corrected. They adjusted. They repeated. They chose speed over comfort. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. The key is deciding first, correcting second. I decide fast and adjust later. Repetition locks it in. Each decision strengthens the neural pathway of action. Each adjustment builds resilience. Each repeated step reinforces identity. Now let's be clear. This is not blind impulsiveness. This is disciplined decisiveness. Disciplined decisiveness is built on standards, thought discipline, emotional control, and environment. All the lessons you've learned so far converge here. Because speed without alignment is chaos. Speed with alignment is unstoppable. When a choice appears, hesitation is the enemy. Overthinking is the enemy. Analysis paralysis is the enemy. Decide fast. Move immediately. Observe. Correct. Repeat. Nothing is real until I accept it. High performers understand the math of action. Action generates clarity. Clarity generates confidence. Confidence generates momentum. Momentum reshapes reality. I decide fast and adjust later. Say it again. I decide fast and adjust later. Speed exposes reality. Speed reveals character. Speed magnifies standards. If you move slowly, obstacles appear larger. If you move quickly, obstacles shrink. Speed is not a skill. It is a habit. A habit of choosing action over hesitation. A habit of trusting yourself. A habit of valuing momentum over comfort. Practical instruction. The next decision you face, no matter how small or large, follow this rule. Decide immediately. Take the first step before doubt speaks. Adjust as you move. Never wait for certainty. Every decision followed by immediate action rewires your identity. Every hesitation reinforces the old self. This is why speed is a decision. It is a commitment to act. A commitment to trust yourself. A commitment to become the person who moves first, regardless of fear, uncertainty, or emotional state. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. As this chapter closes, understand this. You cannot accelerate growth if you linger in indecision. You cannot build power without motion. You cannot become unstoppable without choosing speed. You've trained your mind. You've led your emotions. You've designed your environment. You've embraced pain. Now, you must move faster than your doubts. You decide fast. The world obeys. Next, we will explore how focus multiplies speed and makes every action count. Chapter 11. Discipline is self-respect. Most people think discipline is suffering. They imagine it as punishment, as restriction, as sacrifice for some future reward. This is why they avoid it. Here is the truth. Discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect. Every act of discipline is a vote for your own standards. Every time you follow through, you reinforce identity. Every promise kept is a deposit in the account of self-trust. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. Doing what you said you would do, especially when it's hard, is the definition of freedom. Not freedom from work. Not freedom from rules. Freedom from weakness. Freedom from doubt. Freedom from regret. The world respects results. But the mind respects consistency. The nervous system respects follow-through. Nothing is real until I accept it. Discipline is a muscle. It grows when exercised repeatedly. It atrophies when ignored. I keep promises to myself. Say it clearly. I keep promises to myself. Think about it. Every time you say you'll act, and then don't, your identity shrinks. Every time you follow through, your identity expands. This is why the truly disciplined don't rely on motivation. Motivation is temporary. Standards are permanent. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. Outsmart the game of reality by seeing discipline not as a restriction, but as the framework of personal power. The small choices matter most. Waking up when your alarm rings. Sitting down to work when you don't feel like it. Finishing tasks you would rather avoid. Each yes strengthens identity. Each no erodes it. I keep promises to myself. This is not heroic. It is mechanical. It is simple. It is relentless. High performers do not negotiate with themselves. They do what they said they would do, even when nobody is watching, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable. This is why self-respect always beats public approval. If you can't trust yourself, who else will? Discipline is the clearest signal of integrity. Integrity is the clearest signal of identity. Identity is the only thing reality obeys consistently. Every missed promise is a crack in the foundation. Every kept promise is a brick in the fortress. You are constructing a life one choice at a time, one follow-through at a time, one moment of consistency at a time. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. Here is the practical instruction. Make a list of 3 commitments to yourself today. Small, meaningful, non-negotiable actions. Complete them without exception. No excuses. No rationalizations. No delays. Feel the reinforcement in your nervous system. Notice the growing trust. Notice the quiet power that comes from keeping promises. Repeat tomorrow. Repeat the next day. Repeat until identity and action are indistinguishable. I keep promises to myself. Say it again. I keep promises to myself. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect. Discipline is power. Discipline is freedom. As this chapter closes, understand this deeply. You cannot build a life of authority without first respecting yourself. Self-respect is not abstract. It is built in the moment, in the decisions you make, in the promises you keep. You've trained your thoughts. You've moved despite emotion. You've designed your environment. You've endured pain. You've acted decisively. Now, the next step is persistence at scale, because power multiplies only when effort is sustained over time. Chapter 12. Detach from outcomes. Most people chase results as if they are trophies. They obsess. They worry. They overanalyze every step. And the irony? Obsession repels results. Here is the truth. Results follow alignment, not desperation. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. The people who achieve effortlessly act from certainty, not fear. They move with purpose. They move with discipline. They move with standards. But they do not cling to outcomes. Clinging creates tension. Tension distorts judgment. Tension invites error. Detach from results, and suddenly energy flows. Opportunities appear. Solutions arrive. I move in certainty and let results follow. Say it slowly. I move in certainty and let results follow. Obsessing over what might happen is wasted energy. It signals doubt to your nervous system. It broadcasts insecurity to reality. Outsmart the game of reality by doing your part flawlessly and allowing the universe to respond. Every action has a reaction, but you cannot force the reaction. You can only perfect your action. You can only show up consistently. You can only move decisively. Detachment does not mean passivity. It does not mean apathy. It means clarity. You act. You move. You do your work. And then you release. I move in certainty and let results follow. This principle works because the universe mirrors frequency. When your energy vibrates desperation, scarcity, or neediness, reality mirrors it. When your energy vibrates certainty, alignment, and commitment, reality mirrors that too. Nothing is real until I accept it. The strongest frequency wins. Look at every high performer you admire. Notice their calmness under pressure. Notice their unwavering focus. Notice how results seem to come to them. It's not magic. It's detachment. It's mastery over obsession. It's trust in the process you've built. Here is the practical instruction. Every time a result matters to you, pause. Ask, am I doing my part with precision? Am I acting from alignment or anxiety? Then release. Focus on the next right action. Perfect the process. Detach from the outcome. This is how momentum compounds. This is how confidence stabilizes. This is how identity remains unshakable. I move in certainty and let results follow. Say it again. I move in certainty and let results follow. When you detach, two things happen. Your nervous system relaxes. Your actions become sharper. Fear-driven action is sloppy. Aligned action is precise. Aligned action draws reality. Detach and you stop chasing. Detach and you stop overthinking. Detach and the work itself becomes its own reward. The irony is profound. The more you let go of the result, the more likely it is to arrive. This is why obsession is the silent killer of potential. It convinces you that you must force the future. It convinces you that you are not enough unless outcomes match your expectations. Outsmart the game of reality. Focus on your alignment. Move from certainty. Let results follow. Reality obeys identity and frequency, not desperation. As this chapter closes, understand this. You've mastered thoughts. You've led emotion. You've designed your environment. You've endured pain. You've acted decisively. You've respected yourself. You've moved consistently. Now it is time to amplify your presence and influence, because impact is the natural next step when action, identity, and detachment align. Chapter 13. Become unrecognizable. Most people are afraid to change, not because change is hard, because it makes them unrecognizable to the world. Friends, family, even colleagues expect the version of you they know. They resist the new you. They whisper, consciously or unconsciously, stay the same. And many people obey them. Here is the truth. Growth requires shedding old versions of yourself. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. You cannot step into your next level while clinging to the old identity. Not partially, not temporarily, fully. Transformation is total or it is fragile. Half measures produce discomfort without progress. Real evolution demands courage. You must let go of who you were to claim who you are becoming. Say it clearly. I am allowed to evolve. Say it again. I am allowed to evolve. Old habits, old beliefs, old identity. All of it must be assessed. All of it must be questioned. All of it must be released if it no longer serves you. Most people don't do this. They upgrade superficially, new job, new routine, but the core self remains unchanged. This is why most transformations fail. The outer world may change slightly, but the internal world remains the same. Outsmart the game of reality by embracing the discomfort of unrecognizability. It is the only path to radical growth. Letting go is not loss. It is gain. The old self was limited. The old self followed fear. The old self obeyed rules it never agreed to. You don't need that self anymore. I am allowed to evolve. Repetition solidifies this. Repeat it daily. Repeat it while uncomfortable. Repeat it while others resist your transformation. Because the people who struggle with your evolution are not your audience. They are your old context. Your new identity does not ask permission. It claims authority quietly and consistently. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. This is why shedding old versions feels destabilizing. You feel ungrounded at first. You feel uncertain. You feel lost. That is the signal that you are growing. Resistance is not a wall. It is a compass pointing toward transformation. Every time you act aligned with the new you, you reinforce your evolution. Every time you let go of attachment to the old you, you gain freedom. Every repeated action of new identity rewrites your reality. I am allowed to evolve. Say it again. I am allowed to evolve. Practical instruction. Identify one belief, habit, or identity pattern that no longer serves you. Decide today to release it. Replace it with a behavior or thought aligned with who you are becoming. Do this daily. Do this relentlessly. Do this publicly or privately. It does not matter. What matters is the internal signal. You are evolving intentionally. Every repetition of this process compounds. Every shedding accelerates identity. Every act of evolution makes the old self weaker and the new self stronger. This is how you become unrecognizable. Not superficially, not for show, but fundamentally. You become a force that the world cannot predict. A person who cannot be boxed. A presence that shapes reality rather than reacts to it. Nothing is real until I accept it. As this chapter closes, understand this. Transformation is permission. Transformation is action. Transformation is persistence. You've mastered thought. You've mastered emotion. You've designed environment. You've endured pain. You've acted decisively. You've kept promises. You've moved in certainty. You've detached from outcomes. Now, you are ready for the final leap, the mastery of life itself through presence, impact, and uncompromising action. Chapter 14. Consistency is the real secret. Most people underestimate consistency. They chase big breakthroughs. They crave dramatic change. They wait for moments of intensity. And yet the real power is in boring, relentless repetition. Here is the truth. Small actions, repeated relentlessly, dominate time. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. Your nervous system does not recognize a single heroic effort as identity. It recognizes patterns. It recognizes frequency. It recognizes repetition. Every repeated choice reinforces your identity. Every repeated action compounds into results. Every day you show up, regardless of emotion, energy, or circumstance, you grow stronger. I show up every day. Say it slowly. I show up every day. Consistency is invisible at first. No one notices your early repetitions. You may feel like nothing is happening. You may feel stagnant. This is normal. This is necessary. This is the quiet work that builds unstoppable momentum. Outsmart the game of reality by choosing the long-term view. Intensity feels good today. Discipline feels hard today. Consistency wins tomorrow. High performers do not rely on spikes of effort. They rely on steady, repeated motion. They understand that momentum compounds faster than intensity. One perfect day does not create a life. One consistent day repeated over months, years, decades, that builds mastery. I show up every day. The reason consistency works is simple. The universe favors repetition. Habits shape identity. Identity shapes decisions. Decisions shape outcomes. Nothing is real until I accept it. Small daily actions may seem insignificant. Reading 10 pages. Writing 200 words. Exercising for 20 minutes. But repeated daily, these microactions shape your reality. High performers understand the math of repetition. One action/day x 365 days equals 365 repetitions. 365 repetitions/year x 5 years equals mastery in the domain. Compound interest of effort. The strongest frequency wins. Consistency is not glamorous. It is boring. It is mechanical. It is relentless. But this is the secret that most people never learn. When intensity fades, momentum carries you. When motivation disappears, repetition sustains you. When circumstances challenge you, identity built on consistency keeps you grounded. I show up every day. Practical instruction. Choose 3 microactions that align with your highest standards. Do them without exception. Do not negotiate. Do not wait for the perfect moment. Morning, evening, in public, in private, just do it consistently. Notice the transformation. Notice the nervous system rewiring itself. Notice confidence solidifying. Notice the effortless flow of results following repeated action. This is why boring discipline beats intensity. Because intensity is temporary. Consistency is permanent. Intensity sparks. Consistency sustains. The path of mastery is built from invisible victories. Small choices repeated. Small commitments honored. Small standards enforced. I show up every day. Say it again. I show up every day. Consistency is the backbone of all previous lessons. Thoughts repeated daily create identity. Emotions handled daily create mastery. Environments maintained daily create support. Pain endured daily creates resilience. Decisions executed daily create confidence. Discipline honored daily creates self-respect. Everything compounds when repeated. The real secret is not willpower. It is habitual alignment. It is showing up when no one sees. It is acting when it feels boring, inconvenient, or uncomfortable. Outsmart the game of reality by embracing the quiet grind. Relentlessly. Without drama. Without shortcuts. I show up every day. As this chapter closes, understand this clearly. Consistency is not just a tactic. It is the law of reality. It is the mechanism by which thoughts, identity, and action become unstoppable. You've trained your mind. You've led your emotions. You've designed your environment. You've endured pain. You've acted decisively. You've kept promises. You've detached from outcomes. You've evolved. And now, you show up every day. This is the final threshold before mastery. Next, we will close everything with a relentless sequence of truth and action, to lock in every lesson and issue your ultimate challenge. Chapter 15. You are the source. Most people search for completion outside themselves. They look for validation in approval. They look for power in positions. They look for happiness in circumstances. And they never find it. Here is the truth. Nothing external completes you. Everything flows from within. Reality is a mental and spiritual game, not a physical one. The world mirrors what you are. Circumstances respond to your frequency. People reflect your energy. Results follow your identity. You are the cause, not the effect. Say it slowly. I am the cause, not the effect. Say it again. I am the cause, not the effect. When you accept this, the game changes completely. You stop blaming, waiting, or hoping. You stop giving away your power. You step fully into authorship of your life. Everything external is neutral. It has no inherent power over you. Your mind, your standards, your discipline, these are the levers that move reality. This is why high performers do not chase circumstances. They shape them. They understand that success is not a destination. It is a reflection of internal mastery. They act, not react. They create, not consume. I am the cause, not the effect. The nervous system obeys identity, not excuses. Your life responds to your energy, your decisions, and your frequency. When you claim authorship, fear loses credibility. When you claim authorship, challenges become opportunities. When you claim authorship, pain becomes a portal. Outsmart the game of reality by recognizing that every moment you live from reaction, you reinforce powerlessness. Every moment you live from choice, clarity, and intention, you reinforce authority. This is the ultimate lesson of transformation. You do not need permission to succeed. You do not need approval to act. You do not need external circumstances to be complete. I am the cause, not the effect. Repetition locks it in. Say it daily. Say it in moments of doubt. Say it when the world challenges you. Everything begins internally. Thought precedes action. Action precedes results. Results follow identity. You are the source. Not money. Not people. Not luck. not circumstance. You are the generator, the architect, the lever, the origin. Nothing external can make you more than who you decide to be. And nothing external can stop you if you commit fully to your inner authority. Here is the practical instruction. Every morning, repeat your commitment to yourself. I am the cause, not the effect. Every decision today, act from authorship. Every challenge, respond from your frequency, not from circumstance. Observe. When you act as the source, opportunities appear. When you act as the source, relationships shift. When you act as the source, results accelerate. This is not arrogance. It is clarity. It is ownership. It is mastery. Reality obeys identity. Your life obeys the source within. I am the cause, not the effect. Say it again. I am the cause, not the effect. The final truth is simple. Everything you need already exists inside. Everything you want already flows from who you are becoming. Everything that matters is a reflection of the frequency you carry, the standards you uphold, and the action you take. Step fully into the source. Step fully into authorship. Step fully into your identity. And when you do, the world finally obeys, not because it must, but because it mirrors the power you've cultivated within. This is your ultimate challenge. From this moment, live as the source in every thought, action, and choice. No blame. No waiting. No compromise. Own your mind. Own your body. Own your environment. Own your actions. Own your life. Say it one final time. I am the cause, not the effect. You are the generator. You are the origin. You are the source. And now, the world will reflect what you choose to create. In closing, you've heard the truth now. Not once, not twice, but enough times for it to sink in. Your life is not waiting to be saved. It is waiting to be claimed. You don't need permission. You don't need validation. You don't need one more sign. The moment you decide who you are and refuse to negotiate with that decision, everything begins to reorganize around you. This is not about perfection. It's about direction. Every disciplined action is a vote for the future version of you. Every standard you enforce is a declaration of self-respect. And every time you show up when it would be easier to quit, you become harder to stop. From this moment forward, you move differently. You speak differently. You expect more from yourself first. Your challenge is simple, and it is non-negotiable. For the next 30 days, act as the person you decided to become while listening to this. Not when it's convenient. Not when you feel ready. Every day. Because confidence is built through action. Identity is built through consistency. And power is built through self-trust. This is where excuses end. This is where alignment begins. You are not becoming someone new. You are remembering who you were always meant to be. Now go and take action.